Welcome to Live from the Pastor's Office. It is a joy to begin this journey together. We, for over 90 years now, Hales Corners Lutheran Church has been in existence and has existed. And in this celebration during this time, we're kind of reminiscing. We're going back and we're thinking about the story that God has built this ministry to immeasurably more than all of the people from the beginning all the way up to today could have ever asked or imagined. He has been so good to us, and He has blessed us along the way. I mean, not without challenges, but has blessed us along our way. And so we want to take this time over this next 8 weeks or so. Live from the Pastor's Office will be with one of our folks who can help us remember and reflect on where we've been, how the Lord has blessed us along the way. And you really can't do that endeavor without Pastor Johnson. Pastor Johnson has been pastor here at Hales Corners Lutheran Church for just a little bit less than half of that entire 90 years. And so Pastor Johnson has seen a lot and has served the Lord faithfully, and God has blessed your ministry here, brother, and is still blessing that ministry today. And so first of all, I love you, and I thank God for you. I thank God that we can be together and just have a little bit of time to reminisce on 39, going on 40 years of ministry here at Hales Corners Lutheran Church. So I wanted to be able to start this journey, just you and me, and visit with you about just reminisce together, and what are the things that you remember along the way, and milestones that were important from your perspective, and so as you thought about coming and sitting down and visit with me, what do you think you wanted to share?
Well, I reflect back to my coming here, 1980. Was kind of in the summertime, and I came from a hot part of the country, and here was really much cooler.
You came from where to here?
From Alabama to
There
here.
you go, Alabama.
Right, the Gulf Coast
Uh-huh.
here, and we're looking forward to a Christian day school experience, and so Hales Corners provided that opportunity. Both my wife, Sylvia, and I were invited to be part of the ministry here. Sylvia, being a teacher, was teaching in the lower grades, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, different years, and so we enjoyed the ministry there. So it was an opportunity to get to know people from two different perspectives.
So when you first came here, who was the senior pastor? Who was the principal? Was that Ron Caston time?
No,
That
Raleigh
was
Sandstrom.
Raleigh Sandstrom
Was
okay.
the principal at that particular time.
Very good.
And Ron Caston came
Came
after,
later.
right.
Yeah.
So it was within short period of time.
And the pastor, who was that?
Pastor George Fikencher.
George Fikencher. Yeah.
He was George William, and so he went with Bill.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so we could share in a similarity. He came from Houston, Texas, here,
Yes.
and so I came from the South to be here and to share in it.
That's amazing to me, because I know I came from North Carolina to here, not as far south as Alabama, but Mike came from San Diego. Mike Ernst came from San Diego. I wonder what the Lord has in mind by bringing people from warm parts of the country way up here to the hinterland. Go ahead. You were starting to go somewhere and reminisce.
Well, certainly there was many experiences. I was impressed with the leadership of the congregation here. Being a sole pastor in congregations prior to coming here, and it was a blessing to come and be a part of a team.
Yeah.
And so this was the blessing for us to come and share with various talents, and each person having their own special, unique gifts. And it was in a way to contribute to the ministry that was here.
Mm-hmm.
So, or ongoing, and then build it up and go with it. When I came, it started with junior high and youth ministry. Now it's at a different end of perspective.
So wait a minute, when you came here, you had youth ministry responsibilities.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, great. Well, great.
So I covered the gamut.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, wonderful. So, so when you came, who were the teammates beside that impressed you along the way and made a big difference? Not necessarily just the pastors, because it was Fakincher and then Ernst, right?
Yes.
But who were the other teammates along the way that you had the opportunity to work with?
Well, Ron Caston was one that came, and he was certainly had various gifts and abilities, and principal and leader, charge the Board of Education was his really title. Then also we have some listing people.
Oh yeah.
Can I use my cheat sheet?
Yeah, sure.
Lay minister was certainly Wally Hoyer,
Yeah.
and he was here years before me.
Yeah.
And
And in this journey, we're going to have a chance to visit with Wally a little bit about
Sure.
Part of the history. So
Right.
I'm excited about that.
yeah, and Armin Molodky, layperson,
Yeah.
who was also brought on board and displayed good leadership.
Mhm. Armin and Carol are still with us and with us every Sunday and
Right,
a part of our seniors ministry.
right. And also Hib Wiedenkeller,
Yeah.
our musician. He came from Milwaukee Lutheran High School, and so brought a good perspective there to be sharing.
So, and Hib's mom, right?
Right.
Hib's mom was organist
Correct.
before Hib came,
Right,
right?
yes.
And then,
So he was on the organ bench
Uh-huh.
as a youngster,
uh-huh.
and his mother then was the organist.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. So who else is on there?
Well, in addition is Kevin Rather. He was a minister of stewardship for us.
Okay.
And I mentioned Hib, so
Yeah, very good.
Hib was coming at a time when there was a turnover for a new hymnal. And so that was the learning how to use a new order of service,
Yeah.
the new hymnal, and
So that was Lutheran worship,
Yes.
82, 83, right in there?
right. Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it was really a blessing to instruct us and learn certain parts of it, and I think God's gifted him to be a wondrous blessing for us.
Yeah. I think Hib was also one of the people that opened this congregation up to the journey that has led us toward being more creative and more open to a wider variety
Definitely.
of musical styles and those kinds of things along the way.
Right.
Trying to take the best from every generation and not fall into faddishness, but to still be open at the same time.
And he provided a good amount of variety in the types of music and hymns,
Yeah.
hymnody that would be here. So
Yeah.
one evening that I remember specifically, as we normally had a large attendance on Christmas Eve,
Mm-hmm.
and on
So we're, in this memory, are we on the Grange campus? Are we in
Yes.
the sanctuary in Grange?
Grange
Okay.
campus.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there we filled the church and every week, and so we were blessed there that God's people came, responded, and provided and served well. We had worship services on Saturday evening, and they were at 7:00 p.m. And I thought people should have the opportunity, as we listened to people saying, we need to have an earlier service. So we started out then with a 5 o'clock, 5:30 time for a Saturday night service. And so rather than going slow, taking time for the people to make the adjustment, we held time for both services, 5:30 and 7 o'clock p.m.
On Saturday night.
On Saturday night, so that they could get, and we would prove that the 5:30 or 5 o'clock was popular. And attendance would demonstrate that.
Yeah,
And it proved well.
yeah, praise God.
And I was going with one or the other, and I remember particularly Christmas Eve service. I don't remember the exact year, but I remember it was at the Grange campus, and a young man, Keen was his last name, but he was a high school lad, and he went to ring the bell. And on that particular night, he went and pulled the rope to ring the bell, and that brought the bell down, literally down, from the location of it in the attic area, and it went down to the main floor.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've heard. So I've talked to his mom about this story as
Oh,
well.
yes, okay.
And they count that as a miracle that her son is still alive.
Yes, indeed.
And I know that Hib saw it happen, and was also just amazed at the way the Lord spared that young man's life.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Good thing I was a young man, so he could jump away. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. My goodness. Yeah, the way the Lord has, I have been amazed in the 8 years of me being here. I've been amazed at the way that the Lord just kind of navigates us right down the middle between great, overwhelming blessing and amazing difficulty and crisis. God has blessed us greatly. But along the way, some of those blessings, or even some of those really hard things, is there anything that you would remember about either one of those kinds of journeys in the mountaintop experience that is this place?
I was amazed each time that it came to have a voters meeting. And in many other instances, congregations would go and fight over dollar, line by line item. And we've come to the point to where you can take a $5 million budget and 30-minute presentation, come up, I vote, we approve it, and it went through.
Right.
And that's year after year.
Yeah.
God's people have come forward to with sharing of their gifts and the blessing for the ministry that's here.
And I think a lot of that has to do with trust of leadership.
I think so. I would agree.
Trust, and not just the senior pastor, not just the associate pastors, but the core support staff and the leadership of the place, the board of directors. We've been so blessed with that leadership. I mean, we named some of those folks earlier, but we passed a $6.2 million budget in a meeting that took about 45 minutes. And there were really good questions. But there was not one question out of suspicion or about negativity or anything like that. People have a very wonderful trust of their leadership. It's a very sacred trust.
Indeed.
And it's a very fragile thing. But I think this congregation has enjoyed that for a long, long time, right? A long, long time.
They have. Yes. And they're really supportive of, in most instances, sort of the ministry staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking also another one is saying that for confirmation instruction, and coming to where traditional time was 7th and 8th grade, confirmation at the end of 8th grade, and going to communion was really, you had to wait till confirmation. Here, they were willing to go and take an early step and go and have instruction 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then also to allow communion at 7th grade, and now it's 6th grade.
Yeah.
Right, and so they were willing to go and explaining it and saying the meaning of it, and not necessarily understanding, but faith that accepts it as God's gift
That's
and a
right.
blessing for His people.
Yeah. And if you're going to go, and I think part of the reason that I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to do it this way is that to be able to have the strengthening gift of the Lord's Supper as you go through confirmation, and you're seeking intentionally for the Holy Spirit to give you wisdom that's going to set you up to be able to make the good confession that will mark the pattern for the rest of your life is invaluable. I think there's some wisdom from that.
I agree.
During the time that you've been here, the entire church body used to have a much more uniform practice when it came to confirmation, right? And now, along the way, there's all kinds of different congregations doing all kinds of different things based on what locally works for them,
Right.
you know? And I just thank God that we are two brothers that trust everybody else in their context, and that frees us up to do what we believe is best as well. So.
And then make the major step to come from the old camp. Grange
Before you
campus.
go there, let me say one more
Okay,
thing
let's
about
see.
confirmation ministry. You think about how blessed we've been to average 150. One year we had 187 confirmands,
Yes,
right?
right.
That's just, it's still overwhelming to me. I try to lay hands on each one of those kids and bless them, and I'm like, oh my goodness, God has been so good to us. Through the years to be able to see confirmation ministry, Sunday school ministry, be what it's been, is a powerful thing.
And to come up with a program by which there's a coming together of public school families and Christian day school families.
Yes.
And this is really, we've developed and they're open to that as a new way to bring the young people together, to get to know one another.
Yeah, it's been very good.
We're blessed with that.
You were going to start remembering things about moving from one campus to the other.
Indeed. I mean, that's what's saying, this is farmland.
Yeah.
And
Kurt's family.
yes,
Uh-huh.
and thanks to Wally, he made big inroads
Yeah.
into convincing this senior lady that to sell us the land
Uh-huh.
and provide the opportunity. So we had a big vision to go from a couple of acres to, I don't remember the size of this area, but it was a blessing for us to be able to go and look at it. We were a little greedy to try and say we want more, but other developers also got
Right.
there and were interested for.
And as a result, right next to us, there's a great big apartment complex.
Indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was this great day of walking from one campus to another.
Definitely.
And there was something pretty unique about your own personal walk on that day,
Yes,
right?
it was.
What was that?
Well, a few months earlier, I had broken a heel, and so I was limping around for 6 months before, and with crutches, and carrying on with ministry, and people wanted to really help me. Can I help you? And they say, can I take your crutches? I said, no, I need no crutches.
But you walked, right? I mean, you walked from Grange to Janesville
Oh, yeah,
Road?
and I had, I did walk, and I was the first of putting on tennis shoes.
I see.
And so, it was a blessing, and I was determined to say, I'm going to walk it with the people
Yeah.
for the 2-mile distance.
Yeah, and I've heard, I think you and I've talked about this before, but I've also talked to Mike about this, just how powerful a day that was. And then everybody got over here, and the brand new campus with the great big sanctuary was already full.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Community was really responded to, in addition to the members. So that was a well-planned, well-executed, and a wonderful experience.
Yeah, great.
And we had a beautiful day. God blessed us with a beautiful day to enjoy that.
So you said to me that you started off in your first call here doing youth work.
Yes.
So over the years, what has been the evolution of your call here? What kind of roles have you played along the way on staff?
Well, I mean, I'm involved in doing a ministry of preaching, in additional pastoral care, visitation. So I just continue on with that.
Right.
There's just, there was the staff, all three of us, Wally Hoyer, Pastor Kencher, and myself, who would take care of the homebound hospital visits. And so that's, so I just carried on.
Yeah, yeah. And so, any idea how many funerals you've done?
No.
Any idea how many weddings you've done?
No.
You know, there are people along the way. Frankly, I just had somebody this week come to me and say, hey, I'd like to ask Pastor Johnson to do my wedding. So they'll be coming to you. But you have been at the heart and the core and the center of those major acts, like weddings and funerals and being in hospital rooms and being in hospice centers and being all over with people running chapel services, worship services in different senior housing ministries, and you've been the chaplain over at Steeple View and seen that, you know, struggle for a long time and now thrive.
Yes, yes. And I've been blessed to be a chaplain in the community, fire department, police department.
Yeah.
We have, they invited us to about 7 or 8 different healthcare centers and senior living places for wanting to do chapel devotions. So been privileged to be a part of that for them.
Yeah. And Lions Club? I mean,
Oh yeah, and the Lions Club.
You've been a tail twister for Lions?
No.
No, you haven't done that?
Chaplain.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
They didn't have you be the tail twister?
No. They got a good guy for that.
Too much class for that? You got.
yeah.
Well, great. So yeah, me too. I mean, everywhere I've been, there's been something in the community. Because if you're going to be outreach oriented in the community, you got to be in the community and be involved. And,
Indeed.
And so you've been involved in those ways here.
Yeah.
Praise
I got
God.
over 30 years with the Lions Club too. So.
Yeah. And they love you. They
Yeah.
love you there.
Yeah.
So thinking about sitting down with me and sitting down here and having this conversation, is there anything else that you had thought about before that you want to make sure we had conversation about before we move on?
I was trying to think of that at various stages and different items come up. I'm sorry, I don't.
Yeah. Sylvia started off as a teacher, just like you said.
Right.
And then from there became a DCE or a deaconess?
Deaconess.
A deaconess.
Right. She was about 10 years teacher here.
Yeah.
And then she decided she wanted to go a different change. And so she went and additional trainings in order to be a deaconess, and then served the St. Paul's at Conowalk.
Yeah, that's a great ministry. Still to this day, and they think fondly of Sylvia there as well. And she has been involved in LWML.
LWML,
Right.
yeah, she served in her various capacities there. Both started local, and then went up and was district president, and also served on the international LWML committee.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah, she enjoyed that very much.
Yeah. Well, great. So when you think about 40 years in the place, God has been very good to you, right? God's been very good to us.
I just saw my cardiologist today, and he gave me a good report.
Praise God. Here we go.
I agree.
Here we go. As you pray about these next weeks, just know we're going to visit about where we have been and celebrate and reminisce and be able to tell the story of who God has allowed us to be and how He has built the church, and using brothers and sisters like Pastor Johnson to get that work done. But there's one reason we do this. You can't know where you're going till you know where you've been. And to be able to look back and see that for 90 years God has done immeasurably more than all we could have ever asked or imagined is meant to give us boldness, right? And courage about the place where we stand right now, you know, and the way God has blessed us with all of the people and all of the ministry and all of the opportunity that He gives. But it's also meant to give us courage and boldness as we look forward. You know, until the Lord comes again, this congregation is going to be courageous and bold and faithful and seeking to be fruitful for the sake of the kingdom. And so as we prepare to reach forward, I just think it's, you know, we've been in ministry for more than 90 years now. It's imperative that we remember so that we can be bold and courageous about the way we reach forward. So thank you for being here and serving the way that you have served. God's people love you, and God's people honor the fact that you are so faithful and you have such a heart for the Lord and for the people of God here at Hales Corners Lutheran Church.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Joy.
Thank you.